Indonesia is a country vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Extreme weather events and associated natural disasters, such as floods caused by heavy rain, and droughts and worsening forest fires resulting from El Niño, have been increasing year by year, affecting people's livelihoods. To cope with these challenges, Indonesia has been implementing various climate change measures.
From our previous study, the economic impact from the climate change could potentially result in loss in economic terms around 35 billion US dollar from 2020 to 24. But if we implementing the climate resilience policy, we could halve the potential loss from the climate change.
Starting with the National Action Plan addressing climate change in 2007, the Republic of Indonesia was among the first developing countries to establish various plans and guidelines to tackle climate change through two approaches: mitigation measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and enhance carbon sinks, and adaptation measures to adapt to the negative impacts of climate change. At the same time, Indonesia has been working on mainstreaming climate change into national development plans.
The Ministry of National Development Planning has implemented the Articles of 3.4 mandate of the UNFCCC by integrating the low carbon development initiative and the disaster resilience into the Midterm Development Plan 2020-2024.
In addition to this, Indonesia's efforts to address climate change under the Paris Agreement are in progress toward achieving the targets committed in its updated, nationally determined contribution and long-term strategy for low carbon and climate resilience 2050. JICA has been supporting Indonesia through various projects.
First, our cooperation is long-term and continuous. Climate change-related needs of Indonesia evolve over time, so does our cooperation. Mutual trust has been constructed and strengthened over years, which I think is an important foundation for tackling our common challenges. Second, our cooperation is not one-way transfer of knowledge and technology. Instead, we strive to co-produce new and effective approaches to address climate change.
Since 2008, JICA has supported Bappenas for the development and implementation of policies for mainstreaming climate change in the National Development Planning through 3 phases of the Climate Change Program loan.
Indonesia is the first country where we introduced climate change program loan. Indonesia has literally transformed its policy framework on climate change over the last 10 years or so. In fact, the country had no national policy focusing on climate change until 2007. But now climate change is among the country's top national development agenda. JICA cooperation has contributed to this transformation in Indonesia.
So support from the development partners like JICA is always very helpful in incorporating the climate change elements into the development planning process. So since the JICA support, we have continued to learn how to develop a better outcome from the climate policies and actions. And we have outlined clear goals as well as strategy in our National Development Plan.
JICA provides support through the co-benefits approach to climate change to achieve sustainable development, while also yielding co-benefits with adaptation and mitigation to contribute to climate-resilient development. These measures aim to maximize synergies and minimize potential trade-offs with sustainable development, while considering the natural environment and biodiversity. Let's take a look at some examples. In the Lumut Balai geothermal power plant project, the new geothermal plant was constructed in Muara Enim district, South Sumatra province, in line with the Indonesian government's efforts to decarbonize their energy mix.
Further JICA support, I think it's really significant for Indonesia to support us in energy transitions.
Construction of Jakarta Mass Rapid Transit Project is an ongoing project being implemented through 2 phases since 2019. The project contributes to preventing air pollution and reducing greenhouse gas emissions through modal shift to the mass rapid transit system in several areas of Jakarta city and meeting the increasing transportation demands.
Rice production is very important for Indonesian people's lives and rural economy. However, the impacts of climate change are becoming more frequent and severe. So therefore, the government in Indonesia decided to introduce agricultural insurance as one of the adaptation measures. However, it's not easy to implement. They need to enhance the capacities of relevant ministries and agencies involved. So our project supported the government of Indonesia to overcome those challenges.
We learned that many farmers learn from these projects how to mitigate the risk from the climate change and have a capacity to measure the risk, and of course learning that insurance is really important to help them in the chance of climate change.
We are going to continue to support the government of Indonesia with Phase 2 project.
Indonesia is committed to climate change mitigation and adaptation in forest and land sector. Indonesia has the clear policy of net sink to make the forest and the peatland sector become a net sink to 2030s, and JICA has been and will be supporting various activities to achieve that target. Mangrove ecosystem is very unique in the sense it sequestrates carbon as mitigation, and at the same time, mangrove ecosystem supports our community's adaptation to climate change through protection of coastal areas from climate hazard. And JICA started rehabilitation support since early 1990s and will continue to do so.
JICA's supports include the development of manuals for mangrove rehabilitation and dissemination of technology and knowledge through improving the function of the Mangrove Management Center. JICA also contributed to sharing and implementing good practices and lessons learned through mangrove ecosystem conservation in Indonesia to the ASEAN region. In Indonesia, forest and peat fires are increasing due to deforestation and forest degradation. As forests and peatlands support biodiversity and capture and absorb carbon, the conservation and restoration of forests and peatlands are very important.
In addressing wildfires, JICA started pilot-scale fire prevention activities as Technical Cooperation Project in 1996. And nowadays, a new project supporting the scaling up, focusing on the capacity building of Bangaraguni is supporting the communities to transform their land preparation method from fire use method to alternative method without fires. One notable collaboration is on the development of monitoring method of greenhouse gas emissions from peatland. The work initially started as a research under the JICA's SATREP scheme implemented by Hokkaido University. Model was developed and already transferred to a research institute in Indonesia. A new JICA's Technical Cooperation Project is expected to support the operationalization process of that model at the national scale.
Through our cooperation, Indonesia has tested relevant policy assumptions and advanced their climate actions. JICA also learned much from the cooperation with Indonesia and applied those lessons learned to our operations in other parts of the world. Our joint endeavor will go on, which I believe will continue to produce not only bilateral but also global benefits.
JICA has been contributing to the improvement of people's livelihoods in Indonesia through promoting the implementation of the Paris Agreement as well as through the co-benefit approach to climate change by integrating climate change measures into all development projects in order to support Indonesia's climate-resilient development.